Hello beautiful people, I hope that everybody is doing well. Welcome back to a new video. My name is Evelin Barta, and if you are new to my channel, welcome to my channel. If you have been already here, welcome back. So today I wanted to discuss something that I have been discussing for quite a while, and I think that is something crucial for us to understand in order to develop in a correct way spiritually. And I'm talking about spiritual bypassing and our spiritual development as individuals and as a collective as well. So what I mean when I say spiritual bypassing is the bypassing of our shadows, is the bypassing of the darkness that is within us. And I wanted to talk about this a little bit more in detail in today's video. So I kind of touched upon this topic like in previous videos, but I never really dedicated a whole video to this particular topic. So, in order for us to understand why it is so important not to spiritually bypass certain things, we have to understand the different stages of a spiritual development. And when we are going through a spiritual awakening, when we are going through this initiation process, we need to integrate both the light and the darkness within ourselves. And what is happening with the New Age community now is that we are having bits and pieces of information from different angles, different sources. And many times I feel like I'm a little bit guilty of not making like a series of videos about a particular topic and then to go through something in detail, but I would rather jump from one topic to another. So I'm guilty of that, and I believe that the spiritual community and the New Age in general, and many people that are discussing astrology or cosmology as well, are jumping from one topic to the other. So we are all guilty of that. The truth is that we are receiving bits and pieces of information from different angles, different sources, and there's no true integration of the understanding of our origin, of the understanding of our history as a species, as the human development. There's no real understanding of how humanity has been through different epochs and different stages of development and how we arrived to the point that we are today. So in order to understand ourselves, it is crucial for us to understand our history, where we are coming from. And in order not to be susceptible to the propaganda that is trying to convince us that we are some byproducts of an experiment, or we are some products of some alien species that wanted to create something on their own image. What humanity is lacking is the understanding of its origin, the understanding of where we are coming from, and that we are much more than just a byproduct. We have been developing epoch upon epoch, and we have earned the form that we have today, and we need to honor that form. So when we don't know our origin and we don't know our true history, humanity's history, we can accept any teaching that is telling us that we are coming from a particular direction. We can accept anything that is telling us where we are coming from. Again, I'm thinking back to my spiritual journey as well, and then how we are susceptible to the false light when we start this particular journey, when we are on a spiritual path. We are very susceptible to teachings as well, and then also lower astral beings and lower entities that are trying to tell us and are telling us our history. So discernment is key here. We have to develop discernment, and the only way to develop discernment is if you are walking the path, if you are walking the talk, in a sense. So it is extremely important at the beginning stages of our spiritual development to be precise, to be precise about where we are coming from and where we want to go. In the beginning, it's absolutely normal that we become bits and pieces of information, and that is very overwhelming for our system. So I did not have an understanding about human history, about our origins, about what shadow work is, about what trauma is when I started my spiritual development. I came out of, I can say that an unhealthy situation, unhealthy relationship, and I'm going to talk about that as well a little bit later, what happens to the individual when we first come out of an abusive situation, abusive childhood or abusive relationships. And those situations for many of us are like catalysts for an awakening. They are wake-up calls. So when things are going to such an extreme in our lives that we are holding on to everything that we can in order not to fall, in order to prevent a disaster from happening. So I'm thinking about in tarot, about the tower, that tower moment. We are trying to prevent that tower moment from happening with all costs. We would be able to do everything just not to look at reality, because we know that if we look at reality, we need to change something in our lives. But if we refuse to look at reality for a prolonged period of time, then the tower moment will happen and the change will be forced on us. So this is what happened with me as well, and I believe that this is what happened with many people. You know that you are about to fall, and you will do everything to prevent that from happening. And if you don't fall and you don't allow yourself to fall, you will receive kind of like a punch from life that will force you to fall, that will push you. That's the beginning stage of our spiritual awakening for many of us. But the further we go, the more precise we need to become. The more precise we need to become about what spirituality is. And we realize that spirituality is not about the light. It is about much more than that. And our understanding has to be very, very precise. Because if it is not precise, then we will miss the mark. So if our understanding is not exact, then we can go off the path and the repercussions can be disastrous. So that can lead us to a degenerative and destructive path, basically. So just think about you being a captain of a ship and navigating a ship. So you are being the captain, you have to know exactly where you're going. Because if you are off a little bit with your direction, if you are just a few degrees off, your trajectory can change immensely. The trajectory of your journey will be totally off. So you will start off like just going a little bit off a few degrees, but then on the long run, you will be totally off. So the difference between this trajectory and that one is immense. And this is what is happening with our spiritual development as well. We are starting off with understanding certain concepts, but as we go further, we need to expand our understanding much more. And that goes beyond just accepting the light. That entails accepting the darkness as well. Otherwise, you will miss the mark. So in order for us to avoid sloppy spirituality and distorted spirituality and then toxic positivity, that is very much the case in New Age teachings, which are focusing purely on the light and not focusing on the darkness as well. They have a resistance when it comes to darkness. It is all about feeling good. It's all about that Luciferian impulse, that Luciferian trajectory, that hedonistic kind of trajectory, where spirituality is being perceived as entertainment, as something that is making you feel good, as something that is making you to escape reality. So many people are perceiving spirituality as an entertainment, as a means to end suffering, but not a means to expand awareness. So when we are using spirituality to end our suffering and to distract ourselves from reality, then we are missing the mark and we are not getting where we want to be. So that is why only with positive thinking and this overly positive worldview, at some point you feel like something is missing from your life. Something is just not right. Because even though you have moments when you are feeling better and you can soothe yourself, it is happening only temporarily. But that void is still within you. It is still unresolved. Your traumas are unresolved because you are refusing to look at them. So that is a dangerous path and a dangerous trajectory to be at. However, is inevitable for each and one of us. And I've been there and many of us have been there. We have all had experiences with the false light. We have all had experiences with toxic positivity, with this law of attraction. If we just think positively, then we will be able to manifest everything, and then we are completely ignoring trauma and we are completely ignoring certain subconscious beliefs, certain subconscious programmings, and the programs that are running in the background that are 1,000 times stronger than the conscious mind. So we are completely ignoring the shadows, we are completely ignoring the subconscious and the power of the subconscious. And we think that only with positive thinking we can manifest anything in our lives. That can really lead us to a degenerative path when we are no longer believing that the darkness is real, And everything that is negative, everything that is painful, everything that is challenging must be unreal. And then we lose our capacity to be present with pain. We lose our capacity to be present with suffering, the suffering in the world, because we think that it's unreal. We think that if we just look at the negativity of the world, the suffering of the world, it will suck us in. We think that that is a trap. So what I was trying to say with this is that we have these experiences with these themes, the themes of toxic positivity, the themes of the law of attraction, manifestation, the new age escapism, and so on and so on. And that is teaching us discernment. And I have been there already. I had many channelings in the past. And only by understanding the true power that is within me and understanding that I should not be afraid of the darkness, I should look at the darkness. I should make the darkness my ally because it's an aspect of me. Only by that I understood that a lot of information that I received via my channelings were distorted and were focused only on the light. So yeah, that is helping us to develop discernment. And the next stage of our spiritual awakening is about being exact about these dynamics, being exact about our trajectory and why we want to go in a certain direction and where we are going, and being absolutely clear about where certain beliefs can lead us. That is including, the degenerate path of humanity. And we have to see these two paths, and we have to understand that it's very easy to get on the degenerate path if we refuse to look at our shadows. Today's spirituality and the new age spirituality is mostly about avoiding spiritual material that is challenging, that is not feeling good. Avoiding spiritual material that, let's say, is talking about lower astral entities or the lower astral or our shadows or our trauma or Luciferian and harmonic forces. Spirituality is being viewed as a means to feeling good. And what is happening when we are avoiding these kind of topics, when we are avoiding the darkest side of the spiritual material? What is happening is that it will start to have power over us. It will start to control us. And what we are doing essentially is what we are trying to avoid with all costs. We will be controlled by the darkness. When we are hiding from our shadows, we will start to be controlled by our shadows. We will start to be controlled by these lower entities. And that is what is around the corner whenever we are trying to escape reality and we are not looking at reality. So that is making us unaware and uninitiated, because initiation, spiritual initiation to a higher level of consciousness, means that you are able to face the darkness. Because the more darkness you are facing, the more you are able to enter in the darkest places, the more light you can hold as well. So the more darkness you are holding, the more light you are able to hold as well. And without the ability to do that, we are getting nowhere. We are not understanding ourselves. We are not understanding the fallen path of humanity either. Because in order to be able to distinguish these different paths, like these two paths, like the exalted path, the progressive path, the progressive impulse, from the regressive impulse, you have to know yourself. You have to understand yourself. And you can only understand yourself when you are diving into your shadows. So understanding the fallen stream of humanity is crucial at this time, but we cannot understand that when we are hiding from our shadows. And what humanity has been through during the Lemurian epoch, when we were not formed fully and the human intellect wasn't formed fully, we did have this hive mind, and we were primarily operating from the heart, from feminine energies. What happened is that we could not distinguish negative from positive. So like the polarities were not formed fully. And during the Atlantean epoch, and this is what Steiner is talking about as well, during the Atlantean epoch, humanity was able and started to form its intellect. So the left brain started to form and the masculine energy started to form. And at the end of each epoch, there is a split in consciousness, there's a split in humanity. Each end time, each end of an epoch has its pitfalls and it has this degenerative path as well. However, each phase of development of humanity was teaching us to form a different type of the human consciousness. So our consciousness has changed over time. And what happened at the Atlantean epoch is that because the masculine energies were formed, the intellect was formed as well. So now we have the capacity in this post-Atlantean epoch to distinguish and to discern the negative from the positive. So we do have the capacity to understand fully intellectually what the darkness is about, what our traumas are about, what the inner conditioning is about, what the generational trauma is about. And we have the capacity to look at the darkest, most challenging, most negative topics and seeing them in all of their effects, and in a way that is not threatening us, and in a way that is not overtaking us. It is not threatening our existence to look at the darkness. That is a mastery over the darkness. And this is crucial for the initiation to a higher level of consciousness and to the changing of the consciousness of the human race. And we are at this stage right now. Humanity is at this stage right now. It is not enough to only integrate the light and focus on the light. We need to understand the darkness, to look at the darkness and its all nuances, being able to break it up piece by piece without being affected, without feeling threatened. So being able to see the darkness in an intellectual way and observing the fear, observing our fear that is there, but not seeing it as something that is dark. So we will start to master the darkness when we are no longer see it as darkness, when we will be able to see it as an opportunity to grow, and when we will perceive polarity as for expansion, and it will no longer feel life-threatening. This is what knowing thyself is about, trusting thyself. This is what being in touch with yourself is about, seeing your own darkness, seeing that you are participating in the darkness that is in the world, and not perceiving it as something that is to be ashamed about, or that is something to be afraid about. Seeing it as an opportunity to grow, seeing it as a useful tool that will expand our consciousness, seeing it as the necessary contrast that you signed up for before coming here. So the era of seeing spirituality as something that is making us to feel good and seeing it as entertainment is over. If we want to develop further and to evolve further spiritually, we have to see the darkness as well. And we have to stop seeing spirituality and perceiving it as a means to fulfill our lower urges. Because that is crucial, as I said, for us to see the lower timeline of humanity. And if you think that that lower timeline doesn't exist because you're afraid to look at that, because you're afraid to perceive negativity and darkness, because you feel like it will suck you in and then you will get trapped, then it will start to control you. And as I said, you're shooting yourself in the foot because you are essentially becoming what you wanted the most to avoid. And what I also see in these alternative, truth communities and also New Age communities is like the two extremes. One extreme is when you have a complete aversion to everything of a negative nature. And the other extreme is when you have an aversion to everything of a positive nature as well. And that is the doom and gloom mentality. When you perceive everything of a positive nature as a sheep mentality or a hive mentality. And then you are very immersed in this doom and gloom and conspiracy theories without finding the middle way. So there are these two extremes as well. So we can have an aversion to facing the negative just as facing the positive as well. And both of these sides are leading us to a degenerative path because both of them are based on fear. The fear of either facing the darkness or the fear of being coerced. And what is very interesting with these two very polarized worldviews is that both parties, like both, extremes are perceiving each other as a threat, are perceiving each other as a trap as well. And both are actually talking about a low consciousness level. They are both very based on the victim mentality and not inner power and not personal power and spiritual power. So they are not based on love, but they are based on fear. And one of them is bypassing the external, the other one is bypassing the internal. The doom and gloom is bypassing the internal processes, and the New Age, floaty spirituality, which I call it floaty, is bypassing the external, and it thinks that all those conspiracy theories about a group of people that is wanting to lord over the world is only some very negative and toxic worldview, and it must be untrue, because everything is love, everything is unity. So everything that belongs to the negative polarity must be untrue. That's a very dangerous concept. So actually both of these concepts are very dangerous, because as I said, one of them is based on bypassing the external, the other one is based on bypassing the internal. So I wanted a little bit to talk about what is happening at the beginning of spiritual awakening and spiritual journey, and going back to abusive relationships or abusive childhood and traumatic childhood. So it is very typical for an individual when, for example, they are coming out of an abusive relationship where they didn't have clear boundaries, when they gave up on themselves completely for the sake of the relationship. So what is happening is that they manage to come out of that abusive relationship and they realize that they didn't have adequate boundaries and healthy boundaries in order to create healthy relationships. So for an individual like that, it is absolutely healing to be in their personal power. And in order for them to take back their power is by being angry. So that's solar plexus energy when it's healing, and the lower chakras when they are healing. They might be very angry with their abuser. They might be somewhat angry with themselves as well, but they are projecting that anger on the abuser. The main focus for them to take back their power is to start to own their voice and to start to voice certain things that they are unhappy about. So that is healing for them. It is healing to start setting very strong boundaries and to say no to people. And what we are seeing is that this is what that person is needing exactly at that time in order to heal. The pitfall of that is that they can develop at this stage a resistance when it comes to the darkness, a resistance to shadow work and certain spiritual concepts that are entailing shadow work and darkness and negativity. Their nervous system is still in hypervigilance, and they don't have the luxury to understand higher order concepts, higher spiritual concepts. So what they need is just positivity and focusing on themselves and developing maybe an individuality as well, and then personal power, like getting back to their personal power. So they don't have the capacity to look at higher spiritual concepts. And this is where we are seeing individuals getting into the New Age community, manifestation, and believing that by understanding their personal power, they can manifest everything. So that is the pitfall of this particular path. So at this stage, you cannot force an individual to look at their shadows, because at this stage, they are not ready yet to look at themselves. They are not ready yet to perceive shadow work properly. They might perceive shadow work as dangerous, as shaming, as victim blaming as well. And they cannot hold that self-blaming yet. They cannot hold the darkness yet. So in order to integrate the darkness and to be able to look at the darkness first before integration, you have to have your own personal authority, and that is a process. So that is the next stage of a spiritual development. When you have enough personal authority and spiritual authority as well, that can give you the trusting in yourself, and it gives you security. So you can give yourself that security to be able to dive into the darkness and to be able to examine what is that you are sharing in common with darkness, and to be able to understand that you are part of the darkness and the darkness is part of you. So that is a master level, when you are able to examine the darkness within yourself, and you are able to understand that the darkness within you is contributing to the most hideous aspects of your reality and of our reality that we are creating, co-creating with other human beings and with other multidimensional beings. So that is next level, when you are seeing your contribution to the suffering in the world. And you don't perceive it as darkness. You don't perceive it as something that is threatening your existence. You perceive it as something that is a great opportunity for expansion. And you signed up for that. The integration of the darkness is, and the light as well. So both the light and the darkness, but the light cannot be integrated if the darkness is not integrated. So when you resist the darkness, you are resisting the light as well. So this integration is a natural byproduct of your spiritual awakening, the positive and the negative aspect of your reality, that is seeing different nuances and is able to see different and multiple perspectives at once. That is a multidimensional consciousness, which you can call, fifth dimensional consciousness as well. So this is what we are aiming at as a collective, as humanity, to have that multidimensional consciousness. And we can only achieve that when we are working through our shadows and our traumas, when we are doing inner child work, when we are no longer resisting those inner dark and very ugly processes that we can call very ugly. But the thing is that the more you are integrating of that aspect, the less ugly you will see that. You will see it as beautiful, an aspect of God through which he is experiencing the contrast, through which he is learning, through which he is expanding, and through which we are expanding together with him. So we are helping him expand with our expansion. I hope it's making sense. So yeah, this is what I wanted to talk about. I will probably dive into this more in the future. Again, we are at crossroads, and without this integration, without this understanding of ourselves, we cannot go anywhere. And we have to be very specific, as I said. So yeah, I think this is what I wanted to say, guys. I hope it resonated, and please subscribe to my channel if it did. If you have not subscribed to my other channel, Esoterica with Evelin, then please do that as well. You can go there, and I have different readings about different topics. I do personal readings as well. You will find information about that in the description box. And I have a Patreon as well. If you want to support my work, then you can do it there. And again, I'm sharing readings there, podcasts, talking about different topics. And yeah, my last video that I did before this about the spiritual consequences of the liquids was taken down, probably if you know that, but you will find that if you want to watch that on my alternative channels, and you will find links to those channels down below in the description box as well. So thank you so much, guys, for being here. Thank you so much for your support. Take care, and I cannot wait to see you next time.